Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. Well, as a continuation of my series on looking after my fruit and nut trees, we're going to be looking after the stone fruit today. I've got peaches that need netting, plum trees that need to be thinned, there's a little bit of disease management to do, and of course, what's a video without some chop and drop maintenance? Just at the start of my top swale, I've got my apricot guild, and the apricots, well, there's not too many on these trees. I have put a bag around two of the fruit just to make sure that I get something from the birds, but there's really not enough here to warrant putting a net over. And I've already done chop and drop on this Tagasasti during the year, so there's nothing that needs to be done with this tree. Heading down the swale, I've got two more apricot trees. And like the apricot next to it, this Tagasasti was trimmed, so that's all fine. The apricots are not plentiful on this tree. It does have a couple. They're not looking too flash, so I won't look forward to enjoying those ones too much. But it did have some fruit on it, which was the first time this season, so hopefully that's a sign that there's more to come in future years. Over the back of the swale is the third apricot tree, which is looking the best in terms of shape out of all three. The trees weren't that well shaped when I got them, and my pruning skills aren't too good, but this one is looking the best out of all of them. There's plenty of growth on it, even if it doesn't have any apricots. I'm pretty hopeful for future years. Now that leads us on to the first of my peach trees, which I've already got some netting over because it's got some beautiful fruit coming on it. This peach tree has been my most abundant producer to date. 2 years ago it was just loaded with gorgeous orangey rosy fruits, which were just delicious, and it certainly got quite a bit on it this season, which is why it's already got the net over it. There's still quite a bit of ripening to do, but we've saved these fruit from any bird damage, so I expect to have a really lovely harvest of these fruit, maybe in late January or into February. The fruit that are on the west side are already starting to show signs of ripening. Now we'll just sneak over to the other side of the berm where I've got my second peach tree. This peach tree here is the one that has struggled the most. Each year it's had a curly leaf disease, and last year it virtually lost all its leaves. It hasn't had any fruit on it as yet, but this season the leaves are looking heaps better. There is a little bit of curly leaf on some of them, so that might take over still, but it's looking much better than this time last year, and it does have a few fruit on it. So it'll be exciting to see if they actually ripen it and we can try those ones out. So what I might do is come around later and pick off the leaves that are affected with the curly leaf and dispose of them, and hopefully it will stop the rest being infected. And one of the branches looks quite diseased. I don't know if that's like a boring insect that might get in there. If anyone knows, please leave a note in the comments. I will be kind of looking that up to research it to see if it's best if I just kind of remove that branch altogether. I'm not really sure what it is, but the leaves that are near there have got quite a few holes in them. It could have been from recent hail we've had though, so I'm not really too sure, but the newer leaves are looking really fresh and green and lovely. I was quite tempted during the year to treat this tree for curly leaf, but after reading about each of the methods of treatment, I decided not to do it. In theory, by improving the soil, it gives the tree more resilience because it gets its own little microbiome, and that's its method of dealing with infection, whether it be from bacteria, fungus, biting insects. It can put off a deterrent. So I decided just to let the system evolve and just see what happens. And so far, this tree is looking not too bad. And now we move on to this peach tree, which has its first fruit since I've planted it. They aren't to size yet, but they are starting to colour up a little bit. Now, I don't recall the name of this peach tree, but I will leave the name on the screen when I find it. But what we've got to do today is put a netting over all this fruit to help protect it from the birds as they ripen. We've got birds already jumping in to see what these guys taste like. And if I don't get a netting over them, well, there probably won't be any left for me to try. Now the tree is actually getting quite tall, so I'll have to get, I'm putting in some posts and then some pipe over the top, and then I'll have to try and drag my netting over. I do have my nephew Trent to help me with the other peach tree, but he's not here today, so I'll see how I go without him. But before I do get the posts in, there's a few branches that I need to move in order to get the netting around this tree. And I'll get this lot under the tree before I get the net on too. Here we go, plenty more space to get these posts into the ground and finally get the net onto this beautiful tree. Now I've tried to square these posts up. You can see the other one through there. And the posts on this side, I have just put on the other side of these two plants, which are a bit close to the peach tree. Oh, we've already had this one being broken, so that one mightn't be here too long, but they're just sort of support species. But I think I can just throw the net over those and they can continue growing okay. And I've got this beautiful little gooseberry that I'm also going to cover over. These two are just about ripe and ready to go, but just a little bit longer for those other ones. So I'll tuck those into the net also and remember they're there. All right, now the challenging part is getting the piping over the top of the tree. Now on my other peach tree, when we had two people, we did put a screw through this. You can put a screw through the hole in the star picket and into the pipe to hold it really well. But that's a bit challenging to actually get that held properly when there's just one person. So I'm just going to hold it with duct tape for the moment, and then I can always go around and add the screw in at a later date. Now I might need to cut this down a little bit. It does seem quite tall, but what I'll do first is get the other piping over to get an idea of where we'll have to tie it in the middle, if possible, if I can get the ladder up there, to hold this up. I might have to come down a bit, but it just means the top of the tree will be dragged under the netting a bit, but I think that's what we'll have to do. So I'll leave it there for the moment, get the other one on and see how we go. I might put this one on first, I reckon. This tastes pretty good. You can kind of undo it if it's a bit loose and kind of secure it just that little bit more tightly. I have found that this tape does last for a number of years on one of my trees, but I will get back and get that screw into it to make sure it does stay put. We're getting there. We just need to get both of those pipes a little bit higher so that we can cover the tree without sort of squashing it down. Yeah. Now I think I've made my pipes too long, which is better than too short, so I'll just cut off a bit and it'll just make the whole structure a little bit more sturdy, even if we do have the net sort of squashing the tree just a little bit. I reckon that'll do. Yeah, this one still feels too long. I might even prune the tree actually. Yeah, I'm going to shorten this one some more and then just prune the tree. These two branches just here don't have any fruit on it and they're really tall. So I'm just going to bring them down more in line with the rest of the tree, and then it'll be easier to get the net over. Yeah, I reckon that'll be better. Take it right down and take that down. Okay, I reckon that will be much easier to deal with now. And this can be mulch. I've just got some zip ties to hold the two pipes together in the middle so they kind of don't slip down. Now you can get pipe that's actually a larger diameter that goes right over the star pickets, but for me to do that it's a lot heavier and a lot more awkward, and I just didn't see myself being able to do that on my own. So I've chosen these pipes and I find that this method works fine, and per metre it's a lot cheaper to do this as well. So now I've just got to get this netting over the top, so I'm going to leave some of it here and attempt to throw the rest over the top of the net, and anyway, we'll see how we go. Oh, that didn't quite make it. Alright, so I'm just going to throw it over there. That ought to work. Might have to get the ladder over this side to deal with these branches because I don't really want to be knocking that fruit off up there. There we go. Under you go, everyone. Because this will get chopped off. Okay, we got that over. Oh, I didn't trim this side, did I? I might just have to trim this Tagasasti on this side. After a bit of mucking around, I've finally got the netting over this tree and secured with these logs that I've kind of sourced around the swale. I cut off the rest of the netting, so that's over there ready to go on a different tree. But the important thing with the netting is it's this small size hole in it, which is better for the birds. And I also have the logs around it, holding it down, because you don't want any birds getting in there because they struggle to get out. So that's really important. And I do periodically come around and check each of my nets just to make sure some bird hasn't got in there, because sure as you think you've kept them out, they will find their way in. Hopefully all this effort will reward me with some beautiful peaches. Next up, we'll take a look at the nectarine tree. The nectarines on it are looking pretty bad at this point. I don't know what's happened to them. Again, if anyone's got some ideas, but I will be looking it up. I don't think it's just from bird damage, unless it's scabbed over from the birds. But there are some that aren't damaged just yet. So maybe it'd be worth putting one of my little bags around a few of these, just so that I can enjoy some lovely nectarines. Now, while there's not enough nectarines to bother putting a netting over this tree, I am having a look at the surrounding trees to make sure that it's getting the light and the space it needs. So all that's needed here is just a quick prune of a couple of these trees that surround the nectarine. I have done a little bit of this Tagasasti before, so there's not too much to get down. Doesn't look too opened up, but there's a lot more sunshine getting onto this tree now, so I think it's sufficient. We've left the top swale now to visit my cherry tree, which is on my roadside swale. Now the cherry did have some flowers on it and some young fruit starting, but I think the birds got to it because it's certainly got none now. So as you can see, some of these support trees do need to be chopped back a little bit, and the tree has also got the cherry slug on it. If you saw my video when I was dealing with my pears, I treated the cherry slug on those trees, and we're going to have to do it on this tree as well. If you don't treat the tree for cherry slug, they just decimate the leaves, a bit like these ones up the top here. Now we've got it fairly early, there's not too many leaves like this, so if we start treating now, this tree should have a good chance of growing well this season. Okay, we'll start with the Tagasasti and get that down a bit. Now to get some wood ash over these leaves. Oh, faithful. Well, hopefully everything's dusted enough to make some sort of impact on this slug population. But like my pear trees, I'll be coming back during the season just to check on their numbers and throw a bit more ash around. Now to take a look at my plum trees, one of which is very disappointing, but the other has an abundance of fruit on it, so much so that we do have to thin it today. But we're just going to take a quick look at this tree that's not going so well. It's got a small number of fruit, but not a lot. But it's got a lot of broken branches. I think it's really been battered by winds over the last couple of months. This is the centre of the tree. I've got little branches that have just broken off. There is a lot coming through the middle, which I'll probably have to clear. Some of these might be good for next season, but as you can see, there's not much in the way of fruit on this tree. I think I need to learn to do pruning a bit better because there's a lot of growth up here, not much in the middle, and then a whole heap in the centre of the tree, which isn't ideal. There is one of about 3 fruit on this tree. The others are hiding over there. So very disappointing. The last 2 seasons I've had a lot of plums off this tree, which is a Mariposa. So I don't really know what's gone on with it this year. Whereas this tree, my Satsuma, has got so many plums on it that it's really weighing down the branches, and I'm afraid they're just going to snap off if we don't thin some out today. Now, the couple of branches on this side are being supported really by the netting and the pipe and post setup that I've got there. So I'm just going to leave those as is. Each season I haven't thinned them, and they've turned out to be good sized fruit, no disease issues, and they've all ripened beautifully. So I'll be leaving this side But as you can see here, these plums are just about on the ground. It's really weighed down this whole branch. So I'll be having to relieve some of the pressure there and also on this second one here. So let's get the netting off and see what we're dealing with. Now this netting setup was not big enough really. We didn't make the pipe section long enough, and it's kind of weighed down the tree in some spots. So if I was doing it again, I would just make my pipe a bit longer and give the tree a bit more space. But having said that, it is supporting a lot of these branches because it's right up against the net. Look at those mega plums on that branch. That is crazy. Wow. This branch isn't too big. That should be fine. And we've got this one over here as well, which is really weighed down. So I'll be taking a lot of those off. Now I think some of these were right against the netting, so the birds have been able to get in and sort of have a go at some of that fruit. Okay, so I'm just going to get in here and just take off perhaps a quarter. Maybe some of these are damaged. And what this will also do is just give space to the remaining fruit, just to really fill out as it ripens and get to be a really good size. Now I think once this tree has finished fruiting, I will be reducing the size of these branches. They're just a bit too long really. Oh, can you still see? Now let's see about this super heavy branch, which isn't too bad. It is kind of resting on the ground. There's not too much fruit on the ground. But we will take some of this out of here. Well, that's all I'll be taking off for the moment. Maybe a couple more. But I'll be keeping an eye on this tree. This branch here, with a lot of the fruit on it, is kind of almost resting on the ground. Now the fruit isn't on the ground, just the branch itself. So I've removed quite a bit, but I don't think the weight's going to be too much of an issue. Just the size of these branches seems to be just a bit too long. Look at that. Doesn't that look just amazing? These plums I usually harvest in January. It's mid-December now, so it's not too long to wait to enjoy some of this beautiful fruit. And what we're left with is a few small green plums. Now, I was looking at Instagram the other day. Hannah Maloney of Good Life Permaculture posted that she was thinning her plum tree and intended to pickle the plums that were left from that thinning. She said it's sort of a little bit like the process with olives, that you brine them and then enjoy them down the track. Haven't tried it, so I'm not sure what that would be like, and I'm not sure whether there's enough here to really worry about it. These might just head to the compost. If you enjoyed the video today, please consider sharing it with friends who might also enjoy the content, and hit the like button. It really does help my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.